Hello, and welcome back to this brand new episode of the Silmarillion Film Podcast. I'm your co-host, Dave Kale, coming to you live from rainy Pasadena. Sort of been shockingly cold, rainy weather. It feels like I'm like in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know what it is, like 2 podcasts in a row now. Last time it was just like we had like the freezing temperatures in the 40s.
I know.
And now we've got rain.
Yeah.
So
what is happening in California? It's like the apocalypse out there.
Dreadful winter weather. So
well, there's been mudslides, right, in the really vulnerable areas. I don't know if that's up in the north or not, but
that's
geez.
the not so amusing part is the mudslide. So,
yeah.
But anyway, but the good news is that we're back with another Silmarillion film podcast.
Yay!
And we're finally this week we're going to finish up some discussion so that probably we can get to villains next time, right?
Yeah,
I mean, the agenda
topic
villains.
is the villains, and we only have to finish a couple things first. So
the agenda says villains, so I assume that's next time.
We're absolutely going to begin talking about the villains. I have to admit, I don't have high aspirations of finishing our villain discussion today, but because there's a lot of things to talk about there. But yeah.
So probably you probably noticed, if you're listening even not closely, that I'm joined as always by the Tolkien professor Corey Olson and the Tolkien maven Trish Lambert. How are y'all?
Hello!
Corey, I think you have some exciting news to share that people are probably aware of, but let's talk about it anyway.
Yeah. So we've I've been having fun this week talking to folks because we've had the Department of Education in New Hampshire officially made their press release about the approval of Signum. And the reason they waited this long is when they originally accepted us, they voted to approve us back in August. But there was a condition that we had to meet in order for it to be like official. It was unofficially official before. And that actually was this massive backroom project that I had to do, but we finished that. And so having completed that, we're now like 100%. And so the Department of Education released that press release, and it's been really fun. Tuesday I was down in New York participating in a panel discussion at the Sheen Center, which was really fun, talking about the Morgan Library exhibit. And I had to drive down to New York through the snowstorm that was coming up on Tuesday. So it took me forever to drive down to New York because I drove down from New Hampshire to New York at like 35 miles an hour. And anyway, so it was really cool. But and on the way down, I did like 2 different phone interviews with journalists from New Hampshire sources and stuff, talking about Signum, and it's been really fun. We talked to New Hampshire Public Radio, talked to several different New Hampshire newspapers and things, and it's been really neat, kind of getting some circulation on that stuff. So anyway, that's been cool. And it was nice to help me pass the very long drive on the way down to New York there. So yeah, it's been very exciting, and we're moving forward now on the next steps. So it's all good.
That's great.
Yeah. Very exciting to sort of be moving things along.
Yeah, I'm super excited for you. That this is such an important project, and it's great to see that it's proceeding, not getting unnecessarily blocked by stupid barriers. So
not for long. Yeah, no, that's been sort of the moral of the last. Like that's really been the narrative. It's not been a very public narrative because it's sort of a boring narrative, step by step. In detail, it's been boring. The big picture, though, is exactly that, Dave. Pushing past all the, one after another, one bureaucratic obstacle after another, in the way of the things that we've had to do. And
well, it's kind of like a quest, right? It's like a King Arthur type, Arthurian type quest, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
it's like
kind of
test
like
your,
the Grail
test your
quest,
devotion.
Where exactly you have to prove yourself. Like, are you true of heart enough to like?
That's
through
right.
This?
That's right. I like that context. I think that's how we should contextualize it.
Exactly. Exactly. I have to tell you, sometimes confronted with bureaucrats like finding
Personally,
yet another reason to say no to something.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer something more like a Lotro quest, like go collect 6 logs.
Right.
That would have been better.
Except it's more like one of those where like you're sent to go collect the logs, and then when you get there, you find that in order to get a log, there's like another 3 quests that you have to accomplish, for which the final reward is 1 log, right? And then you have to go to. I mean, yeah, that's. Everyone would have quit the game if the quest chains were set up like the bureaucratic stuff I've been doing. Nobody wants that much realism.
For a title, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For a title.
Nobody wants. I mean, oh my goodness! Like Slayer deeds are so much more engaging than like what I've been doing. But anyway, no. But it's we've been making progress, and it's been it's really fun to hit another milestone here and keep moving forward. So we're excited about that. Just quick announcements, as other things to get excited about with Signum here is our spring moot season. Been talking about this, but we're getting closer now. Sunshine Moot down near Orlando, Florida on March 23rd, and Nader Moot in Leiden in the Netherlands on April 13th. Both brand new moots, first time moots over there. The Nader Moot is sort of the rotate. So you may remember last year we did London Moot, our first moot outside of America. And this is kind of we're probably going to be rotating between the UK and the continent. I think that's kind of the idea. So this is the Nader Moot is kind of a brand new moot because we've certainly never been in the Netherlands before, but it's also sort of the heir of London Moot, or the partner of London Moot, perhaps. Anyway, so these are going to be both of them a lot of fun. I'm very much looking forward to those. And then, of course, Myth Moot 6, which is the big one, our big annual conference, 4-day conference, June 27th through the 30th. And that's going to be located, as always, in the D.C. area in Leesburg, Virginia, right near Dulles Airport. Registration is open for all 3 of these. You can go to the Myth Moot page at signumuniversity.org/mythmoot. You can go to the individual moot pages as well. Just go to signumuniversity.org, scroll down a little bit, and you'll see little tiles linking you to any of those 3 moots. The registration is open for all of them. You can also submit proposals if you want to lead a discussion or present something at those conferences. You are welcome to do so. So that would be a lot of fun. So anyway, I am looking forward to all 3 of these events and hoping to meet many of you at those places. Oh yes, one quick note about Myth Moot. Lodging is not yet open, so there is lodging there at the event. It's substantially cheaper and far more convenient because you'll be right there in the Mines of Moria complex with everybody else. It's pretty cool. But the registration for lodging isn't open yet, so don't panic. Just register, and then we'll let you know as soon as lodging is open for registration on that. So, the registration price includes all of your meals, so it includes the conference and all the meals and everything. So the only other expense for Myth Moot is the lodging, and as I say, we get a discounted rate there for rooms. So don't worry, don't panic about the lodging. It'll be there, and if you've registered already, you'll be the first to know when that opens. So don't be troubled about that. Okay. Those are our announcements today. So we're gonna look at an overview here, and here's my goal today. My goal today is not to spend like an hour and a half talking about this slide, because I'm gonna move on to the other slides, but an overview of what we're going to be talking about and what we may or may not get through all of in today's session. The big question, so we're going to start off by finishing our Aul discussion, which I'm sure will not take very long. But after that, we're going to be talking about the villains and what are the villains doing in Season 4, and there are a bunch of issues here. So here are some things that the villains may or may not be up to, stuff that we need to think about. to make clouds of volcanic ash to blot out the sun whenever they want to go out and about. We have to remember that we had the sun rising at the very end of season 3, and dealing with the sun is going to be a major feature. You see a couple points down, teach orc armies to function in daylight. I think that that would be really fun. That is to have like a training montage, right, for the orcs, where they're training them to go out in the sunlight. I think that would be.
There should be like an orc version of a haka.
Yeah, here. So, by the way, one thing that I'm thinking. We need to make sure that we never miss an opportunity to play the long game in the Film show, right? Obviously. So one of the things that I really, really want with the volcanic ash thing and the orc armies, when we have the Dagor Aglareb, when we actually have the assault and the big battle, I would like to have like a wall of ash cover, and then the orc armies following along behind, as of course a foreshadowing of the Dawnless Day in the Return of the King. Sauron didn't invent most of this stuff, right? Most of the stuff that he does is in emulation of Morgoth.
Yeah.
So that would be a great way both to emphasize the great advantage that the sun gives here still, because it's still very early days on the sun. Even after a few hundred years, it's still early days on the sun, right? So we do need to show the impact of the sun on the bad guys, and so having them fighting under shadow would be obviously one really good thing to do. And if we can take advantage of that to do that kind of foreshadowing, I think that's really good. And Marie, I agree. Where there's a whip, there's a way, right? Showing the orcs having to be driven out into the sunlight, I think would be a great thing for a couple reasons, right? One thing, we do want to show that the orcs are slaves, right? They're not just, they don't just do what they do recreationally. And so showing that they're being compelled to do something that brings them actual pain, I think would be a good thing for us to show. Anyway, okay, so another thing, that they freak out when Thorondor helps some elf rescue Mithras. Yes. Thorondor, we haven't used Thorondor before, have we? Right? I mean, Thorondor, the Great Eagle, has not made an appearance, right?
I don't think he has. Did we ever have him do anything with Manwë?
I don't think
he has.
We did.
Gee, who are we going to cast for him?
Casting Thorondor. Yeah. An understated but very cool role, right? Who wouldn't want to have that on their resume, right? Exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we haven't done that yet, which is actually very suitable because, of course, we know that eagles and Ents are kind of connected conceptually, right? So having just released Ents in the last season, releasing the eagle here in episode 1, right, when Thorondor, and having Thorondor coming essentially out of nowhere, right, and have everybody, Morgoth as well as Fingon and Mithras, right, be surprised when Thorondor comes, would be a cool thing. And having that happen at the beginning of the season, I think really works. One of the things, of course, we're going to be talking about, as you can see at the bottom of this list, is the making of dragons. And that's where I think Thorondor is going to be really relevant, because I think that Thorondor can be a kind of inspiration for the making of Glaurung. That the dragons are kind of the anti-eagles, not in the sense of like, not anti-eagles in the sense of like, anti-aircraft weaponry. I don't mean it in that sense. I mean, like his version of the eagles, right? He wants to create something that is in some sense like the eagles. Brandon has a really interesting point that he suggests that Thorondor should be voiced by the same person who plays Manwë. Maybe not in exactly the same voice, so it's not like he's just speaking with Manwë's exact
Daniel
voice,
Day-Lewis.
Yeah, having Daniel Day-Lewis voice him as well in sort of a different voice, so that you can hear the similarity. That's cool. I like that. Okay. All right. Okay, so Nick is pointing out now, wait, we did reveal him a little bit. He's not coming out of completely nowhere. We had both the Ents and the Eagles involved in the fight protecting Cuiviénen in the war to begin all wars at the end of season 1. But that's still practical. It's certainly still like nowhere to almost everybody involved. And even Morgoth, I would think, would not have been necessarily, like, he had other things to think about, that Tulkas was breaking into Utumno at the time, right? So even he, I think, perhaps might not have been aware of the role that the Ents and the Eagles played in that particular battle during that point. And as Nick points out, it's been a long time. I mean, it's been several years now since that happened. So anyway, yeah. So let's and Tony asks, are we going to get into the creation of trolls? An excellent question, Tony. We've already introduced trolls, right? We introduced trolls at the end of season 4 with the capture of Maedhros. I think we could allude to it, perhaps, because as Brandon Lovesey was pointing out, we could think about some kind of a analogy, right? Like trolls are to Ents as dragons are to eagles, right? And that's, Brandon, pretty much what I was thinking there. Anyway, so Thorondor is going to be the beginning of that discussion, I think. And so I definitely would want to tie Thorondor's appearance in. In the earliest versions of the Silmarillion material, Tolkien had Thorondor establish his eyries, right? His base was on the peaks of Thangorodrim itself. Which is kind of boss. I mean, don't get me wrong, that there's something kind of awesome about that, right? However, I'm not sure that we actually want to go there. Tolkien himself changed that in later versions, and I'm really not sure that ultimately that's kind of where we want to go with it. But we do need to perhaps think about, I mean, I guess if we're going to put him up in the mountains around Gondolin, right? So we can do that. But anyhow, obviously we're going to want to be a little selective with how we use Thorondor as a character, right? He can't be heavily involved all the time, or that's going to be troublesome. But anyway, okay. So those are involved with the making of dragons as well. Continuing to go, we've got to figure out, so the bad guys have to figure out that the second children have awakened and go corrupt them in Hildorian. Yeah, and we'll talk about that. We have the capture and release program, capturing the elves, making them prisoners, questioning them, and perhaps releasing them, spying on the elves. That is another thing that the bad guys have to do. They need to spread rumors among the Sindar about the Noldor's questionable actions in Valinor, which is premised upon their discovering the truth of the kinslaying, right? So they start to leak this and start to stir up the pot there. We need to start the Dagor Agloreb, the glorious battle, by sending a large quantity of orcs to attack Beleriand, and this does not go well. How does that happen? Why does it happen in the way that it does? What's behind that? We need to send a small army of orcs north and down the coast in an attempt to surprise Hithlum, and Fingon is not surprised. I'm wondering if we want to combine that with the Dagor Agloreb, but maybe we don't. I don't know. And then, of course, as we said, we got to make dragons, and we need Glaurung to escape. That's going to be the very end of season 4, when he escapes and makes a mess of Ardgallen, and is dealt with by Fingon's mounted archers. So we'll get to that when we talk about the dragons. Yeah. Cool. All right. So those are the things that we're going to talk about, and I think you can see why I am not completely sanguine that we are going to complete talking about every single one of these things during today, especially since that's not what we're going to start with. We're going to start with Aul, because there were really two things that we didn't finish up in talking about Aul last time, and those were primarily about sequencing. Okay, like when exactly does the purchase happen, and how do we do that, right? So, okay. We have Aul coming to Nan Elmoth and discovering that, like the sort of residual magic, and making his, and eventually making it into his own like warped little version of the Girdle of Melian, as we discussed. Thingol and Melian discovering that, their honeymoon spot is now being squatted in by this sort of weird Avari dude. And we had talked about the transaction. I can't see Thingol saying to Aul, I'll let you live here, but you've got to give me a sword. Like, I can't see him seeking the sword like that's what he wants, right? I'm thinking that this has got to be some kind of compromise, where he's willing to allow Aul to stay. He would kind of like for him to go. He's willing to allow Aul to stay, but Aul doesn't, is totally unwilling to, he wants to know, first and foremost, Thingol wants to know, like, is this guy reliable? Like, what's up with him, right? And can he trust him? Is he going to be an ally? Is he, like, is he corrupted? Is he one of the bad guys? Like, what's going on here with this guy exactly? He wants something, right, from Aul to show that, like, if he's going to be living nearby, Thingol has to know that he can not have to look over his shoulder at him all the time, right? My thought is that the purchase is ultimately something that Aul, and I was talking about this last time, both that he suggests while also begrudging. Right? He doesn't feel like he needs to prove anything. He doesn't feel like he needs to give anything. But it's clear that Thingol wants something from him. What Thingol wants from him is like his loyalty, right? Aul won't give that, and Aul doesn't think that way anyway. So my thought is that this is kind of the whole projected cost. Him giving him Anglachel is. Aul suggests it because he thinks this is the kind of thing that Thingol wants, right? That he's demanding some kind of price from him. So he begrudgingly suggests this. My thought is that Thingol would initially reject it, or want to reject it. That his response to this proposal from Aul would be like, dude, I don't want your sketchy sword, right? I'm not looking for payment from you. And Melian would be like, I think we should just take this, right? Because this is how he thinks. And like this like, basically, if you don't accept this, it kind of reminds me of, I'm thinking of Frodo and Faramir, right? When Faramir is trying to get something from Gollum, and like an oath from Gollum to show that Gollum is going to be trustworthy. And remember where Frodo says, you must either take this or carry out your law, because you'll get nothing more from him than this. I'm kind of thinking of that same kind of dynamic, right? Where Melian is like, look, he offered to pay you with a thing that he made, which he clearly values. This is the most you're going to get from him, right? This is the highest form of, like voluntary kind of tribute that he's going to offer, right? If you don't take this, you have to just kick him out or, fight him or whatever, because it's this or nothing, clearly. And so he's like, okay, I accept your price of the sword. And this is, of course, why Anglachel has been gathering dust until Beleg claims it later on, right? He's had this awesome sword. He doesn't use it. Nobody else uses it, right? They kind of keep it in the back cupboard because they're not, like, Melian is not comfortable with this sword, as she expresses when Beleg gets it. So, Marie, yeah, I like the fact that we establish Melian as like having insight that Thingol actually listens to, which is kind of nice, right? We don't want to start too early with the Thingol. We have to establish that connection, right? Of Melian being the wise one whom Thingol listens to, and so that when he stops listening to her, it's a big deal, right? So I think that would be cool. Yeah, Julius says, maybe Melian is like this sort of sketchy and I don't want the sketchy dude to have it. Well, yeah, but the problem is he's got one just like it, so it doesn't really matter. And what's more, he made it, right? So the point is not that, like, he will have one fewer sword. The point is that, I mean, he's the source of it, right? So the fact that the sword is sketchy tells you something about his own personal sketchiness, right? And so despite misgivings, Thingol is going to sort of err on the side of generosity, of saying, you know, letting him stay, and not only letting him stay, but letting him claim their honeymoon spot. And then later on, I think they're going to be troubled by what they see, right? When they see what Nan Elmoth becomes under Aul's, you know, guidance, under Aul's influence, I think they're going to be more concerned. But now they're kind of stuck, right? They've given him permission and they can just kind of keep an eye on him and hope for the best, basically. But he's going to be an awkwardness. I mean, there's no two ways about it. He's awkward. So, all right. Sequence, though. If that's how it plays out, when does this play out? Relative to the rising of the sun, that is to say, relative to the actual chronological events of season 4. Do we have to do this in flashback in some way, right? How much of Aul do we contain in season 4? And if this doesn't happen in season 4, how do we get around to this backstory? How can we give that? I am thinking that yes, his settling in Nan Elmoth has to happen before the sun rises. He can't just be a newcomer right now, I wouldn't think. And I would think also that his reputation, even like him being called Dark Elf, I'm thinking that that's a nickname that the Feanorians give to him, like Caranthir and Celegorm call him Dark Elf, later on during the Arthel story. And I think that they could give him that name, right? They arrive and they see, and so they come to Nan Elmoth and are like, whoa, what the heck is going on here, right? And so they probably meet Aul. I would think that he would meet them because he would recognize that he doesn't want them just coming in and knocking on his door, right? So Aul would probably go out to greet them and figure out just to suss out what they want and everything. Anyway, he's definitely going to meet the Feanorians because he has to pass through the Feanorian lands in order to get to Belegost, right? So anyhow, they arrive and find him established and find Nan Elmoth is already dark and sketchy by the time the Feanorians get there. They nickname him Dark Elf. And so we do, I think maybe we have an episode starting, like an episode in which Aul features. We can begin an episode perhaps with a flashback to the time before the rising of the sun, and we can have like the sort of meeting of Aul and Thingol and with the Thingol and Melian's discussion and everything, and introduce Anglakel. That I think we can do. Yeah, Hakan, he's going to be using the dwarf road passing through Caranthir's lands. Yes. Yeah, so we can have a flashback. Both, I agree, Hakan, to his arrival in Beleriand and then to the purchase of Nan Elmoth. Now, the question of his relationship with the dwarves and with Telchar in particular, I do like the story. So there are a couple things that I like about the story that we had thought of for last season and then ended up cutting from last season because we didn't really have a place for it. The business about Aul and Telkar working together, and then Telkar being creeped out by Anglachel and Anguirel, and basically kind of the two of them, her kind of unfriending him after that. And there are several things that I like about that. One thing that I like about that is I like having an example. Especially with the Petty Dwarves plot line that we've already talked about, the dwarf that we run a risk of making the dwarves look just like categorically more wicked than the elves, right? I'm not saying that they are. I'm saying that we run the risk of having people think that that's what we're saying, by the whole oppression of the petty dwarves and things. And we talked about that, the whole, Norn's involvement in the sale out from under the petty dwarves and the second banishment of the petty dwarves and stuff. The dwarves of Belagost are not going to be coming off looking really well there. And Nick, I agree, they kind of are. But the point is, we don't want to allow people to think that that's just kind of black and white, right? So I'm just saying I like the idea of having Telkar basically have moral objections, to show Telkar taking the moral high ground, while she would certainly admire Aul's abilities, right? She would look at Anguirel and Anglachel and say, on the one hand, this is excellent craftsmanship. On the other hand, something ain't right with these swords, and I think that something ain't right with you, right? And to have her be kind of appalled, right, and back off from that, and just creeped out by Aul, I think that's a good look for her, and we want Telkar to be good, right? Because one of the things we're establishing with Aul is that the heart of the smith influences the weapon, right? And since Telkar is the one who forges Narsil, and we don't want any question marks looming over Narsil, right? We don't want there to be any sense that, so establishing Telkar as pure of heart, right, is something that I think we really want to do. It's something that really behooves us to do. Anyway, that's my point. That's my personal point, and I just like the idea of making sure I would like to show a dwarf like being good, like that's all. I just want I want there to be a dwarf who is like making egregiously good moral choices. I just think that would be nice to work that in the season, just to show that we're not painting with too broad a brush, is all. So one of the sequencing questions here is she in on the forging? That was the story, as I recall, that was the story we were thinking about back in season 3, when we were thinking of introducing Aul back then, that Telkar, they would be learning from each other. Telkar and Aul would be working together. He would forge Anguirel and Anglachel, and she would back off, right? If we're going to have the cooling of their relation, but obviously in this sequence, if the purchase of Nan Elmoth by Anglachel is happening in flashback well before season 4, obviously we can't include their forging in this season, clearly. Tony says, what if Narsil was made specifically to oppose Anglachel? That's interesting. I don't think we can pay that off, though. Or Anguirel. I mean, Anguirel, of course, remember that the destiny of we all know the destiny of Anglachel, which will be Turin's sword, of course. Anguirel is the sword that Aul keeps for himself, and which Maiglin is going to steal and take with him to Gondolin, and it's ultimately going to perish with him. So we will last see Anguirel falling through the air with Maiglin as he tumbles off the walls of Gondolin. So it will be significant in that it will become Maiglin's sword. So I think we're going to have a hard time with that, especially because, I mean, ultimately, Murray, exactly. Neither Aravel nor Tuor are going to be using, or Idril, right, are going to be using Narsil. That's not what we were thinking of for that. So I don't think we can we can have that. What I would rather, Tony, is
could
just
we
a concept.
contrive to make that happen?
Well, maybe, except I'm loath to go back on our Narsil discussion, because I liked where we ended up with that.
We may end up with a mutiny too. We have to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah, see, Marie, that's exactly it. We could get it to Tuor, but I really like Tuor's axe. There are very few legendary axes in Tolkien's world, so I kind of want to keep Tuor with his awesome axe. It's just a good look, and I kind of want to keep that. I don't know. Because I mean, let's face it. There are a lot of magic swords or people with awesome swords in Tolkien. And how many magic axes are there? I mean, like Gimli uses an axe, but he's not got a magic axe, right? So I really want to, which means, by the way, note to ourselves here, what's the history? What's the provenance of Tuor's axe? I mean, it could just be forged for him in Gondolin, I'd be fine. But some kind of it might be cool to give it some kind of further history, but that's a discussion for another day. Point is, I don't think that I don't want to displace Turin's axe. He's gonna get a sword. There's gonna be a sword hanging for him right in Vinyamar, because there's a sword that comes with the armor, right, if I'm recalling correctly. But anyway, whatever. It's we can come back, but that's a later discussion. That's a season 5 issue at earliest. No, it is a season 5 issue, but still, because we need to leave Vinyamar and we need to put up the armor and stuff and whatever. But that's not a season 4 issue, so let's stop talking about it now. So Telkar, what's the status? Aul still has to be going through. He has to have this uncomfortable neighborly relationship with the Feanorians, right? Because he's still using the Dwarf Road through Caranthir's territory. So we're going to need at least one confrontation between Caranthir and Aul, right? Where Caranthir calls him Dark Elf to his face. And Caranthir's going to levy a toll, isn't he?
Definitely going to levy a toll.
Yeah.
And do it in a very overly aggressive sort of jerk way too.
Right.
It's not going to be like a check. Or no, it will be a checkpoint. It won't be like a bureaucrat. It'll be like surround you with a
soldiers,
gang with swords.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Murray's still thinking about Narsil. We can't escape it. She says we could have Turgon commission Telkar to make Narsil to put with Tuor's armor, which would make Tuor's sword the foil for Turin's. But if he's not going to use it as his primary weapon, then it becomes a footnote, right? So
Narsil's not a footnote.
Narsil's not a footnote. We can't make Narsil into somebody's second best weapon, right? That would not.
Yeah.
We can't.
It'd be better to just mention it, plant, and then pay it off 25 years later.
Exactly. Yeah. And Tony, I agree. Tony suggests he should charge Aul twice what he charges the dwarves just out of spite. Yeah, he should. One of the things that Aul is going to pay. What's he going to pay in? What he primarily goes to Belagost for, right, is ore, because he's not mining in Nan Elmoth, right? So he needs to make regular trips to the mountains in order to get ore. And remember, mining and the mining and smelting of ores is like Maeglin's specialty, right? That's what he's going to become famous for in Gondolin. So him kind of getting that and learning that from his father is cool, right? So establishing, therefore, at this point, pre-Miglin, that this is what Aul is doing, because they're going to be saying, like, what are you doing and where are you going? And he's going to be like, and no, his ponies don't need shoeing. Sorry, I just was accidentally quoting the Tra-la-la-lolly song while saying that. But the point is, he's gonna have to tell him what he's doing, right? What he's up to, and what he will be up to will be going to get ore from the mountains. And so that, of course, Caranthir sees a golden opportunity there. Right. We talked last time about how to, what is actually paid in tolls. This is not a coin-based economy. So there's no common currency between the elves and the dwarves. So he's not charging them gold pieces for their tolls. They're going to pay him in other things. Aul can obviously pay him in ore, and that he is going to begrudge. Right now he has to do twice as much work because half of his ore he's got to leave with Caranthir, and that's that's going to be that's going to make sense. Do we want a scene with Aul in the mountains? I think we need to see him. Somehow I would like the story of Telkar being creeped out by the swords to come out, right?
Yes.
Who tells it? Probably not Aul, right? He's not going to tell that story. Telkar, or at least if he does, it's not going to sound anything like the real story. Nick is suggesting that, and Hakan was also both thinking that Caranthir is obviously going to be very interested in that special ore, that special metal that he's made. Caranthir is going to admire his sword, right? Nick is suggesting that Caranthir is constantly going to try to shake him down for his super secret, meteorite ore. Which, of course, he will not give under any circumstances. And Caranthir will let him go when it's clear that, he is prepared to fight them all, rather than, he will die before he will tell them that secret. Now, Marie is cautioning us that we're beginning to make Caranthir a little thuggish, and we shouldn't go too far overboard in making him, just like a mafia bruiser. I agree. We want to not overdo Caranthir here. That's fair. And I think one of the ways, Marie, that we can show that is he's not so if he were just a thug, he would kill Aul and take his sword, right? Clearly, that's the play there. He's got him outnumbered. Even if his sword is really awesome, they'll still be able to get it off him, or he can shoot him with arrows or something, right? So, but he's not going to do this. So we can show Caranthir, he could, in theory, just murder Aul and take the weapon, but he doesn't do that. And Aul is going to have all kinds of grudges, right, about how he's treated by Caranthir, even though we will see that Caranthir is not treating him as badly as he possibly could, right? But Aul is going to go away feeling like he's been shaken down, right? He's going to feel like he's had his lunch money taken from him, even though he actually didn't have all of his lunch money taken from him, right? Just some of it. So anyway, yeah, I think, yeah. So who's going to tell the story about Telkar and the swords? It could be Telkar. We could work that. Okay, how about this? I'm trying to throw a bone to the people who want to work Narsil into the Anglakhel story there. I still don't I still prefer our old Narsil story, so I don't want to change that. But we did involve Telkar, right? We had Telkar coming, didn't we? Telkar was actually showing up at the Telkar was traveling, so we had her in actual discussions, and Telkar telling that story. Here's what I like about that, especially if Telkar tells that story in the context of the moment of the like forging of Narsil, right? So as Telkar is discussing Narsil and forging Narsil, she can tell the story about Anglachel and Anguirel as kind of like a contrast, right? You know, that can kind of come up in that context. Nick asks, am I proposing that Telkar tell this story in exposition about the previous foreshadowing? Well, no, it's not foreshadowing exactly. Like, Mithros is there, right, in this incident with the forging of Narsil. And so if Mithros is there, Mithros will have heard about Aul and his awesome swords, right? So that it could easily come up that way, right? Mithros could talk about his brothers have told him of the remarkable sword that Aul has, and is this going to be anything like that or whatever? And she is like, oh boy, yeah, let me tell you about those swords. Like, I was kind of in on that and then backed away from that project in a hurry because yikes, right? So that seems a natural enough kind of discussion to have. And it's a way to, again, that way you have Narsil as the sort of positive thing, right? It establishes the contrast between Narsil and Anglachel, without actually sort of pairing them. Hakan is wondering if Telkar is mingling with the elves a lot. Didn't we have that? Didn't we? I mean, it was a couple weeks ago, so I don't remember. But does anybody remember? Dave, do you remember? Didn't we have Telkar coming to Himring and being involved there?
I feel like we did.
I thought we did too.
It's been so long.
Yeah.
Isn't someone taking notes?
Yeah, exactly. well. Anyway, people who remember better than we can help us sort that out. If it's not her, it's fine. Even if it's somebody else, even if it's somebody like Norn, they can still tell the story, right? I mean, they still know. I would think that Telkar would not have been shy about speaking of that story, right? And so the dwarves would, after this, the relationship between Aul and the dwarves would have cooled somewhat, as like their great smith Telkar would have misgivings about him, and so, and not be welcoming him anymore, and so therefore he would be a little bit less welcome. But like they still have enough, the dwarves in general, I mean, still have enough of an eye on the bottom line that they know he's useful, right? They have learned stuff from him about metallurgy, essentially. So like they're going to keep working with him, but he's not quite as welcome as he was before. Okay. Yeah. All right. Excellent. Yes. Okay, good. So we did have Telkar going out. I thought we had Telkar going out. Okay, fine. So if it's Telkar herself, it's even better, right? Then we don't have to have it be a rumor. We can have her direct reminiscence of this. Yeah. Now, I don't know, do we even need a scene of Aul with the dwarves? I'm not sure that we do. So, to what extent do we even put on screen this concept of Aul's relationship with the dwarves cooling? I don't know that it's even necessary for us to do that. We still need him continuing to go. He's got to get his ore from somewhere, and he's got to teach Maiglin, right? And so Maiglin, we know, is going to go with him to Belagost at times. So that still needs to be happening. I mean, he can't break it off with the dwarves completely. But that's fine. Okay. I'm happy with that. I mean, it means that everything here, right, the story of the purchase of Nan Elmoth and the story of the sketchiness of Anguirel and Anglachel are both going to happen either in flashback or in exposition, but that's kind of where we are, right? I mean, both of those things happened before the rising of the sun, and I still approve of our decision to cut Aul from season 3. It would have been, there was no point for him. Like, there was no outcome for him. Here, it fits, right? because the primary focus of season 4, which was not the case in season 3, the primary focus of season 4 is sort of working out the larger kind of tapestry of challenges in establishing this new elf, set of kingdoms here, right? This new elvish realm here in Beleriand. And Aul is a part of that story, right? And of course, he's going to be playing a more direct role later on, in season 5. So, it fits, even though he doesn't play a major role in the big events of the season. Nevertheless, thematically, it fits much more. And thinking of the themes, right? The themes of reconciliation and forgiveness that we've been talking about. He's an interesting point there, right? And he does fit with that because, of course, he's one whom, Thingol is okay with him, right? That both the Feanorians and Thingol kind of agree to let him be and let him go, right? But that's not really mutual, and it's gonna be, people can ask questions, right? It is a question to be asked. I think that we could establish it so that, the question, was that the right call? Should they just have given Aul the boot from the beginning? Wouldn't a lot of problems have been, were they too, quick to overlook potential problems? Were they, did they err on the side of lenience, when they just let Aul stay and they didn't see the warning signs, right, of what he could be like. So anyway, I think that there are definitely ways in which the Aul story in this way can be made to really fit and be an interesting kind of small counterpoint to a lot of the other things that we're doing. Instead of thinking of our story in season 4 as, chaotic or scattered or anything like that, I prefer to think of it as richly complex, right, and multivalent. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. So,
likely story.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's talk about the villains. Look at this. All right. Let's talk about the catch and release.
Look at us go.
Yeah, I know, right? 2, 3 slides, not even counting the announcements. Okay. The catch and release program. So, okay, let me read through this here to kind of get some of the framework, and then I definitely have some thoughts about this. So, Sauron's long-term plan begins in earnest. After the Dagor Aglareb, he seeks to capture elves, break their wills, and then send them back to the Noldor as escaped captives. I'm not 100% sure the sequence there, but we'll come back to that. Named elves who could potentially be made captive. That's been one of our questions, right? We don't want it. We can't just have red shirt elves. If this is going to have any impact, we need to have named characters involved in this. We've said that for a while. So who are they going to be, right? Suggestions: Maedhros, Rog. If you don't know Rog, Rog is awesome. Rog is one of the captains of Gondolin. He dies in the fall of Gondolin, but he dies awesomely in the fall of Gondolin. Icthelion, also one of the captains of Gondolin, the one who kills Gothmog the Balrog eventually. Orodreth, biggest named character suggested on this list. Eldalote, who is the wife of Vangrod, right? And then so Penlod's invented brother, Penlod, is also one of the captains of Gondolin, only mentioned in the Fall of Gondolin, the old Fall of Gondolin story. Gelmir and Gwyndor. So Gwyndor is the one who is in the Turin story. He's the escaped captive who meets up with Turin. And Gelmir is his brother, who is captured and then killed, thus precipitating the Nirnaeth Arnoediad. Gimli the Blind is a Noldo captive of Tevildo back in the Tale of Tenuviel. It's the first usage of the name Gimli, who, of course, that name will be reallocated later on, so obviously we can't use it for an elf here. But, of course, he is an elf captive actually in the story, so so his name is suggested there. Okay, I have some suggestions about the people involved, but let's continue thinking this through. So we have to think about how and when are they captured, under what circumstances, how does this work, who and how will they serve as traitors, what's the payoff of this program exactly from the bad guy's perspective. There's been a general movement. Ecthelion was suggested early as one of the people who could fit the profile here. He is not a popular candidate, we're told, because he needs to help Turgon build Gondolin. I agree. Ecthelion, you can't mess with Ecthelion, right? And what's more, never mind. Wait, hang on. I'll come back to that. And the phrase that is used for what Morgoth does to elves that he captures, where they are placed under his domination, basically, is called the spell of bottomless dread. That's the phrase that Tolkien uses in the Book of Lost Tales. And it's pretty awesome, right? So what are we going to do with that? So let me start off by kind of emphasizing a couple things here, right? First, what's the plan here? So forgetting how we're going to implement this, let's make sure that we're clear on the concept here, right? So the concept... I think that the Catch and Release program is clearly a Sauron initiative, because this has the fingerprints of the film Sauron all over it, right? Being this sort of devious thing which is focused on the manipulation and domination of people rather than some kind of military action, right? We've seen Sauron prefer to act this way very frequently, right? So this sounds exactly like right up his street. So having Sauron initiate this, my impulse, of course, is I don't want to leave behind the work with the villains that we've done before. And the Dagor Aglareb, just as the Catch and Release program sounds just like film Sauron, the Dagor Aglareb sounds just like film Gothmog, right? A military struggle which does not, in fact, turn out well. It's like, who among the bad guys is most likely to say Hulk smash and just have it not work because he didn't do the math properly, right? That sounds like Gothmog to me. Now, it could be Morgoth. We don't have to just hand that off to a lackey and get Gothmog in trouble for doing it. And I get that, Marie, the impulse to say they want Morgoth to be responsible for the Dagor Aglareb, and let's remember, he will be. He's responsible. He's the boss, right? So if he greenlights the Dagor Aglareb, it's his call, right? I think it should be Gothmog's initiative. It should be what Gothmog is pushing for. It's still on Morgoth that he says yes, right? That he goes along with this. And I think that it would be, Sauron could be maybe not actively against it, but yeah, no, the goal is not to exculpate Morgoth from the Dagor Aglareb, but it seems to me we have presented to us perfectly the next stage of the Gothmog Sauron debate, right? The season 4 version of that. Gothmog from the beginning is advocate, so Maedhros has been rescued. This ginormous eagle came, right, and helped to rescue him. And, so now what do we do, right? Now and then the sun has come out and the orcs don't even want to go outside. What do we do? Right? What do we do now? Sauron's answer to what do we do now is the Catch and Release program. He's like, okay, we need more information, right? We need to figure out we need to figure out whether clearly there's going to be issues here, right? We need to find where the cracks are in the relationships among the elves. We need to figure out how we can widen those. We need both espionage and infiltration. This is our next move. That's Sauron's answer, right? Gothmog's answer is we need to build up our armies and we need to smash them, right? And the whole volcanic ash cloud cover thing can be Gothmog's, Sauron could be like, okay, genius, the orcs don't even want to go outside. What do we do? And Gothmog's like, cloud cover, how hard is that, right? Let's cover, Beleriand in a second darkness like it was before, except even better because it will blot out even the stupid stars this time, right? And then the orcs will be able to attack, and maybe Gothmog believes, right? Remember, the elves are called the Eldar. They're the children of the stars. Maybe he has some kind of theory that just as the orcs are weakened by the sun, the elves are strengthened by the stars, right? So we can we'll have the advantage, obviously, if we're fighting under a darkness of our own creation, right? Where the stars are, not only the sun, but also the stars, totally obliterated. So I'm thinking that that's Gothmog's initiative, and it's not a stupid plan, right? That is not a stupid plan. They still have not made, if Sauron is the one arguing against it, he has arguments, right? Like, look how they kicked our butts on the field the first time. Do you not remember this, right? This is not going to go well. And Gothmog being like, hey, that was only a trial of our strength, and besides, there can be there has to be some other upgrades. The cloud cover is one good upgrade. Maybe they're like better armed now. Bulldog can speak up and be like, no, man, we're not going to take that a second time. They can just have increased their numbers, right? We have 3 times as many orcs now as we did before. So that's kind of my thought. But Sauron is going to persist in the catch and release program. This means I think that has to start prior to the Dagor Aglareb. That is the capturing. Anyway, because remember, the catch and release program, it's not like a moment, right? It's a process. First, you've got to kidnap folks. Then you've got to work on them, right? Somehow or other. And remember, Sauron has experience with this. Remember Sauron and his proto-orcs, right? He still has his methods of trying to break them down. And of course, now Morgoth wants to take a deliberate hand in that as well. So Marie, yes, I'm thinking after the Merith Adderthad. So the Merith Adderthad, the feast of reconciliation, sort of quasi-reconciliation that they're going to have. I think, Marie, that the way that we want to sequence it is up until that point, up and through the Merith Adderthad, Sauron is still fact-finding, right? He's still gaining intel on the elves. So the focus is on Thurin-Gwethil and personally, and like Sauron's spy network in general, of like other vampires, presumably, right? So we have Sauron gaining information. So he comes after the Merith Adderthad is when he really like pitches his plan, right? Okay, this is what I've learned. There's something dodgy going on. Maybe he's discovered about the kinslaying. Maybe he knows about the kinslaying. I think he does know. By the Merith Adderthad, I think Sauron knows about the kinslaying, right? And so he comes to Morgoth and he's like, all right, I got this whole plan. We're going to kidnap folks. We're going to release them. We're going to either release them or we're going to let them escape, depending on, how that pans out with, in the case of the individual person. And we're going to use them to sow dissension. We're going to spread news about the kinslaying. This is going to be awesome. We're going to get them at each other's throats and distrusting each other. And this is a golden opportunity for us. And that's all. And that's all good. So Marie, yes, he and Thurin-Gwethil can be spies of the Merith Adderthad disguised as elves. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Both of them should be there. We can have some backroom scenes of the two of them, kind of comparing notes and going after folks in a spying basis, right? Absolutely. So, okay. So the Dagor Aglareb happens anyway, even after Sauron has begun. So he's begun to do his capturing thing, but Morgoth is impatient, right? Morgoth is impatient and he's still ticked off. So he goes along with Gothmog. Right? He encourages Sauron too. This is not a diss of Sauron, right? Continue your long-term thing. But you know what? Let's try this out. Like, why bother doing this whole convoluted long-term thing if in the end it turns out we can just crush them like bugs, right? Crushing like bugs should be plan A because anyway, I'm ticked off and I really want to do some crushing, right? So he goes along with Gothmog while encouraging Sauron to continue the thing, right? So Sauron's already begun his thing. I think the first disappearances, the first elves captured, should happen prior to the Dagor Aglareb. Note about the infiltration from the north. You know, when the orcs are sent down along the coast, coming in from the north to try to come at Hithlum from the north and are foiled. Part of me wants to incorporate that into the Dagor Aglareb. Let me just say this. Unless we have good reason to make another incident of that, a separate incident of that, which we might, it would be fine. I'm not opposed to it. But it would be kind of nice, actually, to have a little strategery involved in the Dagor Aglareb rather than just a kind of a boneheaded frontal assault. So like they send one, so the idea is they send them around and then, you know, they're going to be coming in the back door while they, you know, so it's like, again, it's strategy, right? Sensible, intelligent, and cunning strategy. Yeah, Murray says the main reason to put it later would be to let Círdan show support for the Noldor after the Kinslaying reveal. That's a great point. Because Círdan, of course, is going to be heavily involved in the thwarting of that northern thing. And in fact, Murray, I really kind of like having Círdan's arrival being like fairly catastrophic, right? And that catastrophe, that little mini catastrophe of Círdan's arrival to help to thwart the northern branch of orcs would be especially powerful if it were in fact also an act of forgiveness on Círdan's part, right? So I like that. I like that a lot. But actually, hang on, let me hold on to that, because I just had one other thought about the northern orcs. Hang on. We'll come back to that in a second. Well, not a second. A couple minutes. So, all right. Back to the capture and release program then. And here I want to begin addressing the question of whom is going to be made captive. Now, Hakan makes a really good point that it's not like the elf lords are going to be super vulnerable, or that it's like we can just have them vanishing without anybody noticing, and like it's going to be a big deal. Hakan, I'm not sure that we can't have them traveling alone. I mean, that does kind of seem to happen. I mean, think about Aul running into Celegorm and Caranthir, right? And when he's chasing Maegwyn and Aredhel, and they're kind of on their own, right? I mean, not alone necessarily, but meeting an elf lord wandering in the woods by himself actually kind of does seem to happen with some regularity, right? Finrod and the men, Baron running into Celegorm and Curufin. I know that's a separate example because they've just been personally banished, but still, anyway, it can happen. It does happen. But, yeah, Murray just pointed out we don't necessarily want too many battles in the middle of the long peace, right? Yeah, exactly. If we have a continuous series of battles, like that would be 3. If we separate them, that's 3 battles that we're having in season 4, which is not going to make it look very much like a long piece now, is it? But anyhow, okay. But people, capturing people. The reason we have a list of names suggested in the first place is, as I already said, we don't want to just have red shirts. We need to have, if we want people to invest in this, they need to be invested in the elves who are captured, right? In order for that story to be really powerful, we have to care about the individual elves. They can't just be faceless, nameless. Well, not faceless, but like they can't be nameless extras, right? I also don't want to make up any more elves than we need to. We are, one of the continual overarching challenges of this entire project is there are enough bloody names in the Silmarillion already, right? We can't, we can't just be wantonly making up new people simply because there's already more than people keep track of, and we are already going out of our way to bring back a lot of characters that Tolkien cut from the Silmarillion, right? Like Rog. So The one way, therefore, to kind of confront both of those challenges at the same time is to have characters who have already been named, who have already appeared in the context of the cast that we've already introduced, have some of them be captured. At the very least, people who are going to be important later, right, have this be their introduction so that we're not adding to the total cast of characters over the course of the whole film project by doing it. Here's before we think about actual characters, I want to suggest this. I want to suggest functions. Who do we need? We don't need every single elf captured to be named. We can have some red shirts. Like, that's okay. We don't have to have like this whole big cast of named elf lords in Sauron's dungeon. When we're having Sauron's dungeon scenes, right, there can be, most of the elves can be extras who aren't named. We just need to have the ones who are going to play significant roles. We will want to be significant, right? Of those significant ones, of those, so the next question, therefore, is what are the roles, right? There are a couple things that we need to demonstrate about the whole business, right? What we need to demonstrate is there are some of we need to demonstrate the outcomes, right? There are a few different outcomes for the elves that are captured by Sauron. One outcome is they remain captured and die in captivity, right? So there's a portion of the population to whom that happens, and who are like enslaved and put to work in the mines, right? We know the Noldor are, especially when they are captured by Morgoth. So some who live out their lives and die wretchedly as slaves. That needs to be one part of the population. Second part of the population, those who actually escape under their own power. Because there are some who do escape. So we need to have an actual honest escapee from captivity. Another outcome are, and I would subdivide this into two, those who are released on purpose because they are made into agents of the enemy. Having undergone the spell of bottomless dread, having been exposed to the domination or subjected to the domination of Sauron and Morgoth. Now, those I would subcategorize into two groups. I would think that there would be some who are so dominated that they are essentially willing stooges. Like they do conscious actions that are in service to the enemy because their wills have been broken. And so they become active. They become active active agents. But there, I think, should be another set who are still under the influence, but like don't know it, right? Who are not collaborators, who have not been corrupted to the point where they are actively collaborators, but who are still like sources of information, who still can be. So, like for instance, this is a random idea, but one way that we could play this particular thing that I'm thinking of: imagine someone who is placed under the spell of bottomless dread, right? They are dominated by Sauron and Morgoth, and they're released, right? An escape is staged. They probably believe that they've escaped, right? I mean, I'm thinking of something, hypnosis is almost always hokey, but something kind of like hypnosis, right? So here's what I'm imagining. The person, they still, like, that Morgoth still has his claws in the brain of this elf, right? but he or she believes that they've escaped on their own volition. They go back to their families and are welcomed back and trusted, and they believe that, and they've been through a lot, right? They're still traumatized, but everyone's really happy to have them back, right? But like Sauron or Thuringwethil can still like show up at their window at night, look them in the eyes, and get them to like tell them everything that they've learned, right? So they still will be they'll be like their spies and sources of information, not willing spies, right? But again, that the enemy still has a hold on them, which the good guys don't suspect. See the kind of thing that I'm talking about in Hakan? Yeah, I admit to being influenced by Dracula here, but yeah, that's the kind of thing.
I think this is what the text implies as well.
I do too.
That not every single person who gets captured and released is a witting spy,
right?
And that's what makes it all the more tragic, right?
Exactly.
That there's actually a lot of people who get captured and then maybe escape, and they get treated just as badly because nobody knows for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have lots of suspicion, right? Lots of doubt. We have people who have, I would vote for at least one kind of tragic character who resists Sauron, escapes by his or her own will, and gets back home to be like, outcast and distrusted and eventually, leaves and goes off like miserable and distrusted into the wilderness. Like that's the kind of situation that we are told happens. Tolkien says that in one sentence, but it's a very evocative sentence, right? That invites us to imagine the uncertainty, doubt, and tragedy of that time. And Marie, I agree. We have an opportunity to show some of this with Gwyndor in Nargothrond. I agree. I also agree that we can kind of play the long game on this. We don't have to do everything with the catch and release program in season 4. Gwyndor, though, is a long time in the future. I would want to establish, by the time we get to Gwyndor in the Turin story, I think Gwyndor we should have a precedent in mind, right? Gwyndor's treatment in Nargothrond should not be to us an illustration of what can happen. It should be a recollection of tragedies that we've already seen, right? So yeah, it is super far in the future. But yeah, no, exactly. That's just what we'll see with Gwyndor. The reason I would like to have some of these tragic situations at work here is that, of course, it fits all very well into our themes, right? The suspicions about the kinslaying and what to do, and the opportunities for reconciliation, non-reconciliation, forgiveness and non-forgiveness, right? Are all going to be really, really strong here. So the question then becomes, not just which elves do we want captured. We need to think of them in terms of these specific roles. Whom do we want? Which of these roles do we need to play out? And how? And whom do we want them to be played out by? I think we need at least 4 total. Again, at least one in each of those 4 categories I was describing. Person who is enslaved and dies in captivity, person who escapes of his own volition, person who is the unwilling stooge of Sauron, and the person who is dominated and becomes an actual traitor. Now, Marie was suggesting that the only willing betrayal should be Gorlim the Unhappy and Maeglin. I do think that they should be a different category. Here's what I'm thinking. Let me get into that a little bit more. The spell of Bottomless Dread. I think we have a really fun opportunity with the spell of Bottomless Dread, right? Because with the spell of Bottomless Dread, what we have the opportunity to do is introduce the theme of the domination of other wills. In fact, I would quite like Sauron to be... so Sauron is capturing people, and he's like torturing folks and, taking, sort of, as I forget who it was it Nick who was saying it's like the super secret necromantic orc project without the necromancy, right? Yeah, exactly. So his methods are kind of comparatively mundane, right? And then Morgoth says, no, bring me one, right? And so he brings one of his captive Noldo or whatever to Morgoth, and Morgoth is like, whammy, right? And he exerts some of his spirit. Remember, that's a theme we need to show. Morgoth weakening himself, right, and putting forth his spirit in order to. So he puts forth his spirit in order to absolutely dominate the will of this elf. And Sauron is watching this and taking notes, like, that's actually kind of awesome, right? So to have the ultimate plan, which is going to bear fruit in the One Ring itself, in the Rings of Power and the forging of the One Ring, and the use of the One Ring as an instrument, because Sauron doesn't quite have the juice that Morgoth has, right? So the Ring of Power is the way he's going to be channeling his own spirit in a similar way to what Morgoth does in the spell of Bottomless Dread, right? In order to bring somebody completely under his dominion. Then okay, so Sauron sees this and he's like, okay, that's kind of awesome. Like, note to self, I want to see if I can develop this technique on my own, right? So planting the seeds, long game, right? Playing the long game with Sauron here, having Sauron learning this technique about the domination of other wills. Now, here's the immediate payoff, right? The immediate payoff is that the spell of Bottomless Dread and the victims of the spell of Bottomless Dread, we can talk about those in ways which already kind of make sense, right? That is to say, we can establish a parallel between those who are victimized by Morgoth and Sauron through the spell of Bottomless Dread and those who are victimized by the Rings of Power, right? So we can be looking at not exactly Gollum parallels, because it's not exactly the same as Gollum, but we can think. So here's one of the things that I'm imagining. One of the things I'm imagining is that we have a Frodo character, essentially, in the sense of somebody who resists the domination, at least in part, right? Maybe entirely, but who is broken by it, who sails off into the West because they need healing. And they can't get it here, right? They can't sail off into the West yet. But again, we see we have this problem, right? We introduce this, what we're going to see with the ring bearers later on. So yeah, I do want to show Morgoth like breaking people, basically, to show people broken and needing help. Somebody in a situation, again, you're
saying broken, but not necessarily enslaved.
Yeah, mentally broken, spiritually broken. Yeah, exactly. What I'm imagining, Marie, coming back to the point you were making about Gorlim and Maeglin, the difference with Gorlim and Maeglin is that they simply choose. Maeglin is going to like have the whammy put on him and stuff, but Gorlim and Maeglin are more complicit, right? What I am imagining with the traitor character, I said I wanted two categories of elves who are under the spell of Bottomless Dread. The one who like kind of don't even realize it, right? And they're just kind of made into spies without even realizing it. The other half being, or the other category rather, they don't have to be half, they can be quite rare, are people who are actually like worked on to be traitors. The shape that I'm kind of thinking is more of a like a Boromir shape. Like I'd like somebody to repent at the end, to be freed in the end, but to die ultimately, like Boromir.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who is just broken, and made against their will to do again. So they're not like Michael, they're not like Gorlam, because they kind of don't know what they're doing. But the difference between them and the spies is that they are committing active actions. So here's the angle that I was thinking on with this, is the invasion of the Northern Orcs. What if one of the elves of Hithlum, or an elf in Hithlum, or anyway, somebody up there, like there is a betrayal involved in that. Somehow the attack is concealed or something by, I'm not sure exactly how the logistics work, but that attack from the north almost succeeds because of the actions of an elf who is dominated. But that elf like is discovered and repents, and so it doesn't come off in the end. But we show how this kind of thing is possible. She wouldn't have a choice. Now, by the way, I'm saying she because I'm thinking this would be a really good role for one of the wives that we haven't given a role to. And the primary reason I nominate one of the wives is that I think it's evocative, for one. I think it's we most of the wives don't have a job in the sense of like there is a role in the narrative that is slotted for them to play, right? Like Rog has a job, right? Rog needs to die in the fall of Gondolin. So whatever happens to Rog, he needs to be able to do his job, right? Ecthelion has a big job. He's got to die in the fall of Gondolin, help establish Gondolin, and kill Gothmog, right? So he's got jobs. Orodreth has a job, several jobs, right? Most of the wives don't have jobs. They don't have roles in the narrative. We don't know what ultimately becomes of most of them. Very few of their ultimate destinies are spelled out. So Eldolante Hakan is kind of what I'm thinking of here. She was going to be my suggestion for the one who is captured and totally broken. And how we want to play. I'm open to suggestions how we want to play it. Do we show her like betraying the logistics I'm not really sure of yet. It would depend on how we wanted to play out the attack. But again, the kind of thing I'm thinking of is somebody who is going to like open the gates from the inside when the orcs are attacking, essentially. That's the species of role I'm thinking of her playing as a traitor here. And we could choose it a couple different ways, right? We could have her, acting like a sleepwalker when she's doing that, right? So she's been coded with these instructions of what to do, but we see her will not actively involved. We could just play her as more deranged, right? She could be just ill. She could be raving when she is found, right? And she's just being cared for. The acting out of the act of betrayal can be just like integrated with her disordered behavior, right? Because again, what she's doing is she's acting out on instructions which she can't resist, because her mind and spirit has been broken. But it's not exactly like a sleepwalking thing either. She can be kind of talking crazy all along. Yeah. And Marie, I do like the idea of Eldolante as she could be the exemplar of the spell of bottomless dread. To have her captured by Sauron, resist Sauron. So we show she's not just weak, right? She's not just a wuss. She resists the torture of Sauron, and then she is taken before Morgoth, and the spell of bottomless dread is laid. We see him personally. She could be the one whom we see him laying the whammy on and exerting his own will and power over her, and she's just broken, right? And then he's like, let her go, right? She'll be fine. And so then we can see sort of the effect on her. And so, yeah, then when she completes the instruction, I don't know if the madness lifts. She might have a lucid moment. I would like to have a Boromir kind of moment with her. I would like to show that her own will still exists underneath and still is set against the enemy. She's not complicit. But she also, I don't think we have her permanently healed. I think she's like permanently messed up. And she might go change from, instead of the more kind of manic state that she would have been in prior to the act of betrayal, she might go into a much more kind of catatonic. Maybe she never speaks again or something after that. But I mean, she should be broken. That should definitely be tragic. And then, yeah, Marie, we'll have her die later on. Maybe we can have her accomplish something good before she dies, die in the act of accomplishing something good. I don't know. We can think about that. That sounds to me maybe like a season 5 question, a Dagor Bragollach thing, perhaps. But anyway, that's the, and I know like this might seem kind of heavy, this sort of sequence that I'm describing, but this is heavy stuff, right? I mean, we really want to convey the spell of bottomless dread and what this means, right? And the kind of impact. And it's a good setup for the Ring of Power stuff, right? One of the problems that I think the people who have a problem with what happens to Frodo at the end of his quest, the people who are disturbed by Frodo giving in to the temptation of the ring in the end, of the fact that Frodo has failed ultimately, right? He does not succeed in his quest. In general, I would say the people who are disappointed or bothered by that are not understanding what happened to him, right? They are not getting. And so I think this is a really good opportunity to show, like, no, this is what happens when the whammy is laid on you. This is what Frodo was resisting all that time, right? Something like this. Now, Bree, I agree. We do want to make sure we avoid having all the male elves die in battle as martyrs and the women dying from being tortured and stripped of their will like Celebrian. Yes, we don't want to make that too persistent a pattern. I agree. But I agree. But but at the same time, Bree, I want to have at least one other elf woman do it, right? I mean, that is, when it happens to Celebrian, it should look familiar, right? That's how Tolkien stories work. We get the same story repeated again and again, right? So we should get stuff. Ooh, Haakon was just suggesting she could kill Tevildo. We do need to kill off Tevildo at some point, right? And we have no precedent anymore, post Tale of Tinuviel for exactly that happens, unless we want to give it to Hurin, or sorry, not Hurin. I mean Huon, the Hound. Anyway, but no, Bree, I absolutely agree.
That would be a little too tropey, I think.
What, like dogs versus cats? Well, yeah, that was the trope in the Tale of Tinuviel, right? And that's why from then on, dogs and cats have not gotten along.
That's true.
That's exactly the story. But yeah, no, I agree. That's not necessarily the kind of story we want to. Tolkien moved away from that kind of allegory, and I think that we can move away from that too. But anyhow, okay. So that's fine. I think we're going to want, since we are doing so much more with so many of the minor characters, we're going to need like more awesomeness to go around, right? So we can definitely save Tevildo for the right moment. I don't even know when that's going to happen. But yeah, I think we can do better. Okay. So if Eldalote is in if people are okay with putting El Delante in that role, we still need at least 3 others. We need one elf who vanishes and never seen again, right? Who is gonna we will see at some point as a side note in one of the villain scenes working as a slave in Angband, right? So we need somebody to be a slave in Angband. We need somebody to escape under his or her own power and be unbroken. And we need somebody to be the unwitting spy. So the sort of half-broken person. And Hakan, it is not going to be Elmo. No, it is not going to be Elmo.
I like Hakan. He's a guy after my own heart.
True.
So
Elmo and Bobway together.
Yeah. Elmo. Sure. We could always bring in Bobway for this.
Yeah. What about Bobway?
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. So I think, I mean, just to Bria, thinking about what you were just saying, and wanting to be careful not to make, not to have the appearance of simply working with gender stereotypes, having a man as the one who's the unconscious spy, have one elf man and one elf woman have the whammy laid on them makes sense. So who could that be? Who's the unconscious spy? So here's my problem with our list of names. I liked El Delante. Maedhros, I mean, yeah, he was captured, but his story's already been told, right? So he's not part of this particular, he's not part of the catch and release program. Maedhros is not going to be captured again. That is not going to happen, right? So, yeah. So Maedhros is a burning flame. No way. Gelmir and Gwyndor, sure, but they're in the future. They're too far down in the future. Gelmir he's going to be a prisoner and he's going to stay a prisoner. We could set him up now. It's pretty far, really far in advance. I'd be afraid that it's too far to have that payoff be. I mean, if Gelmir vanishes in season 4 and we next see him in season, I don't even know what, 8, maybe 4 years from now, like he's dragged out and dismembered in front of the army to kick off the Nirnaeth Arnoidiad. That's too early. Hakan, I am not only talking about Noldor. I'm happy that we should have at least one of our 4 be Sindar, absolutely. So again, Gelmir and Gwyndor are attempting. Gwyndor obviously not yet, because he's good until the Nirnaeth. He's got a couple important jobs right later on down the road. Gelmir, I think, is too soon. We only want to introduce him when we introduce Gwyndor, and I think it's too soon for Gwyndor. Penlod. Okay. I'm going to take some convincing that we need to see. To me, introducing Penlod is exactly the same thing as just introducing a totally other random character. Like, remember I said we don't want to add to the cast of characters any more than we need be? Penlod is an addition to the cast of characters. He's, even in the Fall of Gondolin, he's obscure, okay? Like, he is, of the listed Lords of Gondolin, he's one of the most insignificant and obscure, and we don't need him. We have people, to be captains of Gondolin, we have enough people to do that job, right? We've got Ecthelion, we've got Glorfindel, right? Glorfindel and Ecthelion by themselves are almost enough. I'm adding Rog because I think Rog is awesome. So if we've got Rog, Ecthelion, and Glorfindel, and Maeglin, and Tuor, right? We've got enough captains in Gondolin. We don't need another random Gondolindrim lord, I think. So
yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah. As Nick says, I can say that the one place we don't need more people is Gondolin. Exactly. So Penlod, I think, is just, again, he is like functionally adding a brand new character. Gimli the Blind, ditto. Like, Yes, there is a character who's named Gimli. He's a fun trivia question because his name is Gimli. But if we're going to say that guy Gimli, who is not going to be named Gimli, who is he? Nobody. He's a like a completely unconnected character whom we've never met before, and so therefore doesn't help us as far as keeping our cast of characters down. So this narrows us down only to Rog, Ecthelion, and Orodreth in this list. Ecthelion, I agree with the general acclaim or declamation that he shouldn't be. I agree. Ecthelion has enough jobs. He's going to be busy being awesome in Gondolin. He doesn't need to be part of the catch and release program. Let me say a controversial thing and say I would put Glorfindel in the catch and release program before I put Ecthelion in the catch and release program, honestly. But let's see how what the discussion board thinks of that suggestion. Rog. So I like Rog, but if Rog is going to be in it, Rog is going to be, I think the only thing I can see Rog fitting is the one who resists and escapes. Rog is going to die in the fall of Gondolin, like spitting out his last defiance at Morgoth. He's going to be like dying, leading a charge, which like helps to allow others to escape. You know, he's going to, the role that I see him playing in our version of the Fall of Gondolin when we get there, you know, in only 10 years or so, will be, he's going to like lead the last desperate offensive, which is in which everyone is going to die who goes on it, but which is going to enable Tuor and Idril to escape with Glorfindel and the rest of the refugees, right? So he's going to die so that other people can escape. He's going to die self-sacrificially. Ecthelion, of course, is going to die too, but he's going to die taking out Gothmog. So those are their two jobs, and their two jobs are different, right? Ecthelion dies in defense. He helps to stave off the attack by killing Gothmog, which is going to be very significant, right, to the attacking armies. And Rog is going to die helping to cover the retreat. Again, at least that's my initial idea. Rog can't be broken, therefore. I don't think he can be the spy, because that would make him, I mean, who would trust him as captain in Gondolin, right? I don't want any shadow to be over him in Gondolin, really. So he could be the defiant one. He could be one who escapes. That's really the only role that's left for him. And I'd be okay with that. You know, he could be... We could even have on the field of Gondolin him meeting again one of the bad guys that he knew as a prisoner, right? So there could be some really cool payoff, actually, to have Rog having seen the inside of Angband before and having escaped. That could lead to some really nifty battlefield scenes. So I would be down with that. Orodreth. I can see the temptation to name Orodreth as one, to include Orodreth here. On the one hand, hey, it gives Orodreth a distinction other than being a wuss, and it explains the wussitude, right? And I get that. Like, why is Orodreth so namby-pamby and unassertive? Because he's scarred by his experience in Angband would be the answer then. And that's not a bad story. I mean, I kind of like that. Here's what I don't like about that, though. What I don't like about that is that nobody else seems to be aware of that. Like, surely somebody, like one of his brothers or somebody, would have been like, you know, Orodreth has PTSD. Maybe we should not put him in charge. Maybe that's not a good idea either for him or anybody else, right? Like, surely somebody would at some point over the centuries figure out that it's doing nobody, him least of all, any favors to like keep him in charge, right? So having everybody be either oblivious to that or you know, too spineless themselves, and that feels to me uncomfortable, you know, because he is gonna have a significant leadership role down the road, and you know, how does he get there from this? Now Julie makes the perfectly good point. She says, are there any Noldor who don't have PTSD? Okay, good point. Given, granted, between the Helcaraxa and the kinslaying and everything else, there's plenty of that going around. But yeah, Maria, exactly. Finrod putting him in charge of the Tower of Minas Tirith is the thing that seems to me hardest. Like, okay, Orodreth has been, he's been deeply wounded by what happened to him, right? So let's put him on the front lines. Let's put him in charge of the frontier fortress. Like, come on, that's just mean. Who would do that? It's either mean or short-sighted, like really short-sighted. So, besides which, if we only have 4 elves playing the 4 roles that I was describing, if Rog is the defiant one and El Delante is the totally broken, sort of insane, quasi-insane, certainly emotionally and mentally unstable traitor, then the only 2 roles left available are he or she who languishes in Angman Forever, which is obviously not Orodreth, which leaves Orodreth only possible for the inadvertent spy. And we can't have that be Orodreth, right? I mean, if he's been passing information to the enemy, there's no way anyone's going to put him in charge of the frontier fortress when that happens, right? So, I just... although I do kind of like the giving a backstory to Orodreth's apparent diffidence, right, and weakness and indecisiveness, and I do think that we could certainly make that fit with a kind of the PTSD of a former prisoner. I can't see how we can make it work unless we're going to have more than the 4, because he can't fill that role, which means we don't have a candidate for that role. We need a candidate, and we need a Sindar, don't we? We need one of the Sindar. Do we have any superfluous Sindar that we can use for this? And by superfluous, I mean who don't
Celeborn.
have other jobs.
Sorry.
Mind blown.
I just like that,
my goodness. Oh, man. Oh, no, we can't.
I'm so bad.
We can't.
I was kidding.
But
You said superfluous Sindar. I immediately thought of Celeborn.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, okay. No, wait. I love this. Okay, so Nick is suggesting maybe a use for Celeborn's siblings. We've already got a Celeborn sibling. We got Celeborn. Yeah, we brought in a sister for Celeborn, who is the head of the Green Elves, the sort of non-leader of the Green Elves in Alcirion, the spokesperson for the democratically appointed spokesperson for the anti-syndicalist commune that is the Green Elves of Alcirion. She will be their executive officer of the week. Now we had Hakon Celeborn doesn't have a dad. Remember he's Aboriginal.
That's right, he is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So hang on. Right, Galathil, that was his name. Thank you, Maria. I couldn't remember the name of. No, didn't we make it a sister? Didn't we gender switch Celeborn's sibling? Pretty sure we did, right?
Oh, we did.
I
In
think
fact, now
so.
that you're mentioning it, it seems like.
I'm pretty sure that we did. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. All right. So yeah. So that's fine. So we don't need like Celeborn's family to be distributed all over, Balerion, like the grandchildren of Queen Victoria or something like that. So, let's. Wait, no, Marie, that was the perfect suggestion. I love. First of all, Hakon suggested Dairon, which has potential, by the way.
Oh yeah.
To give him a little bit of interest. But see, no, I think that Dairon. I would prefer to have Dairon's innocence only shattered by Baron, basically. I think that Dairon should be. I would kind of rather keep Dairon as like the. The wide-eyed, blue-eyed boy until we get to the Baron story. So Yeah, and Marie asks, does he even leave Doriath? Yeah, I'm not even sure he's going to have the opportunity to be captured. But no, Marie's suggestion, I think, is the perfect one. And her suggestion was, I'm not sure how to pronounce, I've never been sure how to pronounce this. Anael, Annael, which is the elvish foster father of Tuor. So remember Tuor, in his youth, flees off into the countryside and is raised by gray elves, right up there, and before he flees again, and ends up meeting the Noldor and ending up going down to Vinyamar eventually. I think that's a perfect suggestion. We have a named gray elf whom we can reuse later for his job, right? He will have the job of being Tuor's foster father. And I think it's perfect. Here's why I think it's perfect. Because the person who is in this role, the person who's going to be the inadvertent spy, like, it's going to come out at some point, right? It's going to be discovered. And it's going to be super awkward for that person, right? Because other people are not going to trust him. There are going to be some who are going to think that he is complicit, right? Who are not going to believe that he doesn't know. So he's going to be proven to be a spy. And everyone else is going to be like, you traitor, right? Or at least some people are going to be like, you traitor. And some people are going to be like, well, wait, maybe there's some other explanation. He's going to be like, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. Seriously, I've never done this. And then it's going to be proven to him that he's done this. And then he's going to be like, holy cow, I've done this, right? What's going on? So some people will think that he's just faking it, was a traitor all along. Some people are going to have real pity for him. He's going to be really torn up about this. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm a traitor and I don't even know it. So exactly, Marie. He's going to end up isolating himself from the other elves. So that's why he and a few others with him are going to end up in Hithlum, right? Gray elves who have not been living there yet. So that's why we're going to get these Sindar who are detached from the other Sindar and living in, he's going to start off living in sort of semi-isolation, even a kind of personally imposed exile, right? Because one very logical conclusion to the whole, holy cow, I have been a traitor and I didn't know it phenomenon would be, I'm going to remove myself from everybody so that this doesn't keep happening. Because I don't know how it started. Oh, okay, I do know how it started. I didn't know it was happening. I don't know how to stop it. So I'm gonna leave, right? And the other cool thing is that having him be a Sindar can give. This is how, through him, the kinslaying should be discovered. Because Anael can be an ally, like a close friend of Celeborn. And so he can be on the inside of the discovery of the kinslaying, right? He can be part of the discovery of the kinslaying in Doriath. And so it is through him that Sauron, and through Sauron, Morgoth learns of the details of the kinslaying. So that works really super well too, to have that be one of the Sindar. We can have, they're suspicious, right? They've heard rumors that something happened and they don't know what it is. And so they've been, of course, doing the logical thing and trying to torture Noldor to have them tell them. But that could have been unsuccessful so far. Marie's suggesting it could be a friend of Círdan. Yeah, that would work too. That would help us involve Círdan. Yeah, that's good. And we don't want to give Celeborn too many friends because we already have him being connected with Galadriel, and we don't want to have Anael hanging out with Galadriel and Celeborn as a third wheel. That would be awkward. So, yeah. Yeah. I like that. Perfect candidate. Okay.
I kept myself on mute so I didn't make any more Celeborn jokes.
Awesome. Yeah. Hakon is interesting. Yeah, Hakon suggested Galdor of the Havens, which is interesting because he doesn't have, he has a job in that he has to show up at the Council of Elrond, right? But that's not a big job. And as a lot of water that's going to pass under that bridge between now and the Council of Elrond and the end of the Third Age, right? So, yeah. Yeah, exactly, Marie. So Escapee is Rog, and so Rog can be a good illustration of, we can see Rog can also perform the job of showing how Sauron is trying to torture him to tell him about the kinslaying, right? So who's Rog? Rog is associated with. Wait, I like this suggestion. This was a suggestion from the discussion board, I think, that Rog is one of Fingon's guys, right? And so he ends up in Gondolin after the Nirnaeth Arnoediad. So like the scattered remnants of Fingon's army, many of them retreat with Turgon into Gondolin, and so Rog ends up in Gondolin there. But this is another reason why Rog is kind of even more kamikaze than the other Gondolindrim, right? Because his lord has already been killed, and so he's basically saying, I'm trying to help. He's trying to return the favor that the Gondolindrim did in coming up and supporting them at the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. So anyway, yeah, I think that's I think that's all good. I like that dynamic, separating him. So he's not just, yet another random Gondolindrim lord. He has a different backstory, not only the capturing, but even coming from elsewhere. And this also means he's not just part of the Gondolindrim. He doesn't go to Gondolin at the beginning, right? So we can involve Rog in the earlier battles. We can have Rog be there, by Fingon, or near Fingon anyway, when Fingon is killed in the Nirnaeth. So, okay. Marie's suggesting maybe, so we did name Galdor. We had Galdor as basically kind of an extra. He was a named mariner back in season 3 when we had Círdan sailing around trying to figure out what was going on. Marie's saying we could have Galdor made captive and never escape and only be freed in the War of Wrath. He'd be super scarred. He would have a while to recover. And we could see him choosing to stay with Celebrimbor, after the War of Wrath. But yikes. That's a lot. By the way, another thing that we're going to want, remember how when Luthien rescues Beren from Tol and Gaurhoth, other prisoners are set free? We're going to need a named person there too, so we don't just have red shirts being set free. We need to have a non-extra there, somebody to be like the spokesperson of the prisoners set free from Tol and Gaurhoth. So we need to figure out somebody for that. Not necessarily now, but it could be. It could be somebody who gets captured in this season and is not going to... Because that's not too far. That's, 2 years away, maybe? Right? So that's not too far in the... exactly, Marie. Somebody playing the Gimli the Blind role. Exactly. But again, I think that we could put somebody in, and it's going to depend whom are we going to want him to be reporting to. It's going to be a Sindar, right? Because we want him to go back to Doriath after he's set free, and so therefore be the vehicle of telling Fingal and Melian about Beren and Luthien and what happened at Tol and Gaurhoth, right? So it should probably be a Sindar. It should probably be a Sindar. So we need another Sindar, another expendable Sindar. Wow, boy, that's going to be tough. We're running out of Sindar.
I have to start inventing soon.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to check. So we are in the villain section now, right?
Yeah, we're still in the villain section.
Okay.
So
still,
we're talking about what we're supposed to
I just want to make sure we got to the villain section because it was just
no, we
get
absolutely
to the villains. We didn't start talking about the villains. Okay.
Yeah, we absolutely did. Well, I knew that I was happy to start with the catch and release program because I knew this was going to be the biggest single topic in the villain section. And I was kind of guessing we'd probably spend the rest of the time talking about the catch and release program because this has the biggest implications for all the other plots. The dragon plot, subplot, and the corruption of men subplot are both much more sort of encapsulated, isolated within the season. More independent, exactly. Okay, so Marie, that could be Galdor. So instead of having Galdor being held captive for like 10 seasons, he's only going to be held captive for 2 seasons. Okay. I guess we don't have Orifer yet, right? We can't use Orifer for anything like this. Who else do we have?
Nope.
Minor Sindar characters. We don't have all that many.
Sort of surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Galdor. Galdor's a good candidate, which means if we do have Galdor captured now and held prisoner for the next 2 years, he could be in that 4th role. So we could see him enslaved. Except we would want to really show. I really want an Noldo so that we can see them being put to work at the forges, like we know that Gwyndor is going to be later on. But of course, if it's Galdor, why would Galdor run to Doriath instead of to Círdan when he's released from Tol and Garhoth? That's why I was kind of thinking it needed to be a Doriath person. But we have so few Doriath people. Unless we start going down the future, unless we start exploring Legolas's family tree, is what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm tempted to do it to Cyros just because I dislike Cyros, but that would mess with Cyros's character too. Cyros couldn't be the fop that he's going to become. I can't parse that. Orifer, though, yeah, he's my other suggestion. This could be the introduction to Orifer's character. And he's going to have a long career. He's going to die in the battle at Dagorlad, the Battle of the Last Alliance. Hakon is suggesting Amdir, father of Amroth. Oh. So the problem with that suggestion, Hakon, is that brings up the Amroth question. And considering that we still haven't decided even the Orodreth question yet, I am certainly not ready to decide the Amroth question. That is the question of Amroth's parentage. Yeah. Okay. I kind of like Orifer.
Yep, I'm liking Orifer as well.
If he's imprisoned and set free from Tol and Garhoth, we can have him scarred, but he's not been made a tool, right? So he wouldn't necessarily be distrusted, and he could go on to a long career, eventually becoming the Lord of the Elves of Mirkwood and dying in the Battle of the Last Alliance. Having, Legolas's grandfather have that kind of a direct tie to Beren and Luthien is kind of cool. Yeah. Okay. So let's have that be Orifer. Orifer will be captured, and he'll be the one set free from Dol and Garhoth. So we could have him captured here in this season if we want to. We can this season, next season, that could happen. I'm kind of thinking since the capturing is going to be happening in this season, we should do that now. But we are going to want Enoldo to be made captive and never seen again. Can we deploy another wife for this? One thing that's kind of interesting about that is, she can be a particularly well-known artisan, right? A particularly well-known smith. And so she can have some kind of status with that. and so she would be sort of the one that inspires the, the Noldo chain gang project, right? That Morgoth, that maybe somebody is going to want to, torture her further or just kill her or something like that. And Morgoth is like, no, wait, I've got a better use for this one. Yes. Well, let's leave this to the discussion board to suggest people. I'm thinking.
I like it.
I'm thinking probably a woman, and I'm definitely a Noldo, probably a woman. Make some suggestions here. With Eldolate already in play, and I was right? She's Angrod's wife. Am I remembering that correctly? The other reason I really like that is we had Angrod be the really intemperate one. Like, he's the one who is like most ticked off. So to have him have this other stroke against him, right? In part, his recovery, I should say, of his now mostly insane wife, right? His mentally and spiritually broken wife is already enough to help to explain and to fuel his intemperance, right, as he moves through this process. But then, of course, to see how he is then affected by her treachery, and I mean, there's Maria, I was thinking of a Feanorian wife. I was gonna suggest that too. But anyway, you guys can suggest something. If you think another wife, it could be a sister instead of a wife. That'd be fine too. A non-Arethel sister. But anyway, okay. So yeah, those will work. How and when are they captured? I think that this has to be a stealth operation, right? This is part of, espionage is what Thuringwethil and Sauron do first. Stage 2 of their process should be kidnapping. And I'm thinking Tevildo for kidnapper in chief. Tevildo and his cats. That seems like a Tevildo-ish kind of thing to do, doesn't it? Thuringwethil can help to oversee it, but she's going to be still primarily involved in spying, and she can be the one who is interacting with those who are released back, people like Marty. Anael. Yeah. But exactly, Marie, the pouncing from hiding on travelers. Yeah, this seems like a Tevildo thing, right? So let's have Tevildo in charge of the capturing. And then they can release them in various ways, depending on their degrees. Rog escapes, and Rog's escape, of course, proves that it's possible, so that we can believe it when Gwyndor escapes later on. We have Eldolate, who will just be found, and it can be after Rog's escape, so that they can, Angrod can tell himself that she probably escaped. Right, but maybe even there are people who are uncertain about that from the beginning. I don't know. Anael will escape. Will believe that he escaped, right? So that he just looks like the Sindar version of Rog, right? Until it's discovered that that's not quite the whole story. So I think that the first capturings should happen. Eldolate, at least, should be captured after the Merith Adorthad and before the Dagor Aglareb. So after the party, before the battle. She's captured, and the spell of bottomless, the whammy is put on her, so that we use her to introduce the whole whammy concept, right? And that concept predates the Dagor Aglareb. So that project is happening. We can maybe get at least one other captured, right? Maybe the other, the one who's not going to escape, the one who starts the the indentured servitude project, because then we can show her role in preparing for the battle, right? The enslaved Noldor. There will be then a market in Angband for enslaved Noldor because we need to help create better war material, right? So even Gothmog and Bulldog will be excited about this turn of events, right? So I'm thinking maybe both of those two can be captured prior to the battle, the Dagor Aglareb. Eldolante would have to be released if we're going to do what I'm suggesting, combining the northern attack by the orcs with the Dagor Aglareb and have her treacherous role or treacherous almost role be played out in somehow enabling the orcs from the north to attack, either by concealing their presence or by giving them a route in somehow to Hithlum, either literally or metaphorically opening gates for them. Obviously, she needs to be released before the battle, so she should be first captured. The Permaslave should be the second one captured. Rog and Anil could be captured afterwards. But not too far afterwards, right? Because we need to have them back in general population, for a significant chunk of the latter part of the season. So that's all good. All right. Good. I think we're done with the catch and release program. Any final thoughts? Anything I've overlooked?
I like the possibility of adding some treachery during the Dagor Aglareb. I think that'll be. I think that'll make it. I mean, those are awesome battles, and as Tolkien fans, we just sort of accept that they're exciting, but oftentimes they don't have a ton of drama. It's just
one especially.
Yeah. Morgoth just sends his forces out, and then
they get wiped out. Right? Yes, exactly. The whole point of the Dagor Aglareb is to show the awesomeness of the Noldor and how the orcs can't stand up to them, which is great in a one paragraph description in the text, right? Yeah. But to have a whole big, sort of exciting sequence which just culminates in a totally one-sided stomping, is not very interesting to see, right? And I think could come across as fairly disappointing, or if we're not careful, even comical. So we still need it to be, obviously we want it to be a resounding victory. All of the outlines remains, right? Sauron attempts to attack them. The elves win handily. It's a massive defeat for the bad guys. And the lesson that they learn from that is we need something other than orcs, right? Orcs unaided are not going to be able to do the trick. But I think that we can accomplish that by having more than just one pitched battle, one very lopsided pitched battle, right? Mm-hmm. Dave, in fact, as you're suggesting, by doing more this way, we make it much more, because essentially the Dagor Aglareb will prove they should have advantages, right? The more I'm thinking about it, the more I kind of like the idea of the treason essentially succeeding, right? The orcs are given a big advantage. They're let in the back door, and yet still they lose. And they lose because Círdan catastrophically shows up and attacks them from the side or from behind. And, there's lots of heroic events that occur and the elves wipe them all out, right? So that basically the moral of the story for Morgoth and the bad guys is even when everything goes right, the orcs lost, right? This battle panned out pretty much exactly as we planned, and we got stomped. So it's back to the drawing board, boys, right? Yep. That's clearly...
Well, and what would be interesting, I don't know how to portray this, but in thinking about a sequence of events like that, you have to think that that would leave Morgoth wondering, right? Everything was set up for me to win, and yet all of these sort of, heroic events happen, catastrophes and whatnot. He has to leave him wondering if the Valar are meddling. somehow.
Yes. And it would also be a wonderful way to leave many of the elves in Beleriand highly overconfident, right? And maybe even some of the elves are wondering that. Maybe even some of the elves are saying, like, see, the Valar are with us, that we've not been forgotten. This is, Iluvatar is looking out for us. Like, they could draw that conclusion as well. And yeah, Morgoth could be, maybe we do have a backstage discussion between Sauron and Morgoth, being like, you don't think that did that seem a little coincidental to you? Do you detect the hand of I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I could see that coming up, right? Maybe in the context of one of their other things. In fact, I would see it as a lead-in to Hildorian, when Sauron and Morgoth are discussing the corruption of men. That would seem to be a very sensible moment to have that conversation, to see them, Morgoth and Sauron, that is, thinking about the larger strategy, right? In their, because Morgoth is not going to be losing sight of his ultimate conflict with the other Valar, right? He's not, the conquest of Beleriand is not his goal, right? That is a very minor feature of his goal, a preliminary first step. Okay, we do not have time to talk about the corruption of men in Hildorian, but so next time we will talk about Hildorian, and we will talk about we'll talk about Hildorian, and we'll talk, what's the other thing? Dragons. Yeah. So we'll talk about the dragons. We'll talk about Hildorian. And then I also do want to talk about this other thing we've been saying we want to get to briefly, at least after we talk about the villains, and that is Luthien. What is Luthien's role? What's her job? What's her character like? So that we don't have her as just, decorative prior to the story of Beren and Luthien. So we'll talk about those. So our goal will be to talk about those three things next time. And our next time is next week. So you remember we had to change the schedule a while back. This is our second shifted week, because I had a bunch of things. My poor son was getting his wisdom teeth out last week. So his poor head was all swollen out like a melon. I felt really bad for him. But anyway, he's pretty much recovered now, but I was in a surgical waiting room during film time last week, so man, I had to shift that. Anyway, but starting next week, we'll be back to the regular route. So we're going to have next week the 22nd, and then we'll be back to our original every 2 week schedule. So we'll have we'll do the 22nd, and then our next one will be the 8th of March. So that'll be good. Okay. Excellent. So that's what we'll do for next week. So think about those three things. I'd be interested to hear. I know you guys have been thinking about those things to some extent already. Be interested to continue refining those things. And then looking forward after that, the next step in our process here in season 4 is to begin thinking to make a new season outline. With all of this stuff in mind. Philip Menzies, I think, made a sort of comment that I laughed at because I thought it was a joke. It struck me as funny to make a Gantt chart of our plot lines, but actually I've been convinced it's actually really a very good idea.
Yeah, so, I'm looking at them like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, exactly. So we're building a Gantt chart on the discussion boards. So we'll be dealing with that time after next. So on March 8th, the goal will be to be discussing that and be ready to work our way through. And then remember, we're going to then go back, but we're not just going to do one episode per session, since we've already talked through a lot of these things and we will have organized things. The goal will be then to kind of work through in more detail a couple episodes at a time as we move through the rest of the season there after that. So as we work down through March and into April,
we definitely need to set aside a little bit of time to discuss the special effects for the spell of Bottomless Dread.
Yes. Yeah.
Just want to plant that seed. Folks, think about that.
That is a great point. Yeah. Connecting back with the discussion we had last season, right, where we were talking about how we want to show Morgoth weakening himself, right? We want to convey to our viewers that Morgoth is dispersing his own spirit through and into his servants and victims in order to accomplish his ends, and that in the end he will be weakened by this. And we talked about how we could do this as far as his representation. Do we show him emaciated? Do we show him like with an increasing pallor? Do we show him looking, more and more shrunken and ill? How do we convey this? So I definitely think that thinking about the spell of bottomless dread this is another example, right? Again, especially thinking ahead to the Ring of Power, I want to have the spell of bottomless dread not just be a thing that Morgoth can do, but another one of those things where he has to expel his spirit. If he is going to crush the mind and spirit of Eldalote, he has to put forth himself to do it, right? He has to weaken himself in order to do it. And also in order to properly enslave the whoever the Noldor is, with the other Noldor woman who's going to be doing the craftsmanship, right? Who's going to be working at his forge. That too, he's got to expend his spirit, because she's not going to voluntarily do that, right? The Noldor aren't going to be like, yeah, sure, I'll volunteer. As long as I'm here anyway, I'll make stuff for you, Sauron and Morgoth, no problem. Like, they're not going to do that, right? Voluntarily. They have to be enslaved. Their wills have to be enslaved in order to do that. And we can show them as almost like autonoma. They can be almost mindless, but they can be quite mindless, because you can't be mindless and do what the Noldor do with their forging, right? But yeah, thinking more about what the spell of bottomless dread does and how that looks. Maybe we can come back to that in the post-production episodes at the end of the season. But
yep.
I agree, Dave. That is a good and important question. All right, very good. Well, then that will be all for today. We will go. I was about to say on time. Well, only half an hour, 45 minutes late. It's all good. Half an hour earlier, or 15 minutes earlier than we often finished. So
yeah.
we'll just
depends on how you define on time or early or late.
Exactly. These are all very relative terms. Okay, very good. So thanks everybody, and I will say as always, thanks for listening and Godspeed. Okay, excellent, folks. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody.
I'm very excited about how the caption release is turning out.
Yes, I have always felt that this was going to be a really crucial element of the season, and I really wanted to make sure that we could get that properly worked out. It's going to play such an important role in the whole atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia, and it's going to provide a bunch of opportunities for reconciliation and non-forgiveness and I think if we do that right, it can be a really important thread that runs through the whole rest of the Noldor Sindar stories that we've been talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody, of course, on the discussion boards for your awesome suggestions. These have been great. We couldn't do it without you guys. And thank you for your patience with us as well. So we will see you guys in 1 week, and I'm switching over from my Grifflet stream here in a minute. Thanks, everybody.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Although the theoretical budget of our hypothetical blockbuster may be unlimited, the production budgets of this and the rest of our fun alternative educational projects are unfortunately not. If you have enjoyed joining our production team, please consider donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.